your Donut Princess, and you're listening to Short and Sweet, a Donut Princess podcast, where I explore women empowerment, small business tips, and AAPI stories. Today, I have an amazing guest, Journey Khan. She is somebody who, right off the bat, I could just tell that she's a really genuine person. Her personality is so big and she's so expressive, and I just knew I wanted to be her friend and I wanted to highlight what she's up to. And I feel like when we highlight what our community members are up to, not only does it create relatability, but it also fuels them in so many ways. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And literally we met at Pilates class. So Mega Reformer in Santa Monica is one of the places I do Pilates at, and I was instantly drawn to her energy, and I was I really want to know her entire story. So
there's a lot of it.
And there's a lot of it. So let's get right to the beginning. Mm-hmm. So did you always live in LA, or are you a transplant?
I am a transplant, but a long-time liver in LA, long-time Angelina, no one says that. But I've been here for over 10 years. Came out here for UCLA as per usual, and then could not envision myself anywhere else. I came from a small town outside of Sacramento.
Okay.
It's called Walnut Grove. No, it's not Walnut Creek.
Not Walnut Creek.
Don't worry.
Okay.
A lot of people are like, Walnut Creek. I'm like, no. So my town has currently, and when I was growing up, anywhere from 1,500 people or something like that to
small
1,750, somewhere around there. I don't know. I don't check the census.
Yeah.
You know, but it's very small. And then we are additionally the only Asian family within a good 17-mile radius. Mm. I know that because I went to high school 17 miles away. Mm-hmm. So we used to do that commute. Yeah. I have a younger brother named Forrest. That's a fun fact that I like to tell everybody, because it kind of explains my parents' thinking in naming me Journey and him Forrest.
Okay.
They're very traditional but non-traditional.
Okay, so tell me more about that.
They're very earthy. My parents are both retired. They love to garden. Mm-hmm. My dad, he is from Locke, which is a nearby town that was actually featured. Him and my mom were featured on Lisa Ling's TV show Takeout with Lisa Ling. Oh, yeah. They were on episode 2, I think.
I've been meaning to watch it.
You'll know. You'll see them and you'll be like, that makes sense. Journey's personality fully comes from them. And so my dad grew up in Locke and also owned later on, but used to work for a small business owned by my grandfather. Okay. So it was creatively called The Big Store, a grocery store.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, it was so cute. At the end. It was just so cute. And so my dad what's crazy is I have a very, at least for me, in terms of finding other Asian people that represent me or have a similar background to me has always been pretty challenging for me.
Oh, yeah.
So my mom is from Taiwan, and then my dad was born here, so was his father. So my great-grandfather came here from China. Okay. So in terms of my Asian identity, it's very, I have found it really challenging. So when I was in high school, I had a lot of Asian peers, but in high school you're just kind of forced together. Yeah. You don't really get to select the people that are truly in your life for a reason. Yes. And so when I went to college, I found it tremendously difficult to find that careful balance of whether I wanted to be the token Asian or whether I wanted to be the token white Asian amongst the Asian girls in the Asian sorority. Mm-hmm. So I really struggled with understanding my place there. And that further got exacerbated by taking an advanced Chinese class. The only options was beginner or advanced, okay? Girl. The girl next to me was from Shanghai.
Oh, jeez.
I had cheated on 2 tests in my entire life. One of them was in that class. And she wrote very slow next to me so I could copy her.
Oh, wow.
And I still remember that, and I remember my professor definitely having a feeling that I was cheating. Yeah. But giving me the benefit of the doubt because I was definitely behind everybody.
Yeah. Wait, so let's rewind.
Yeah, I have a lot of story.
So, Walnut Grove, and there weren't many Asians here at this place. So, I mean, did you ever get teased or bullied?
Oh my gosh,
when you were
so
there?
much.
Yeah, what would they call you?
I mean, the thing is that they wouldn't really call me anything to my face. So I was never kind of bullied in a way that was outright, which honestly like freaks me out, like seeing kids these days like on Snapchat, on like Instagram, doing TikToks and stuff like that. There is a lot of ways to contact people now. And before, when I was like an early teen, it was like early AIM and stuff like that.
But you can't really like...
You can kind of control that.
Yeah, because you have like your specific friends.
Yes.
Like it's not like, here's
and I was
this. And
Dreamy Asian Angel 210.
Oh my god, cute. I was like Boba Girl like 89 or something.
I feel like it's a very like close to the heart thing.
Yes. Or like Kristen's Baby 89.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
XOXO.
Crazy Asian Girl.
Yeah, the
GRL.
the Dreamy Asian Angel, AZN. Definitely.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah, no, the reason why I ask is because, you know, personally, I grew up around this area, but, you know, it wasn't really gentrified before, and there was no Asians in my schools. Like, I was the only Asian girl, so literally they called me Asian girl, and there was definitely a lot of times where I did get bullied, or kind of, like, stereotyped, or just, like, you know, disregarded because I looked Asian, and, you know, telling my mom all of this, she's like, no, just be quiet.
Yeah.
Don't stick out. Don't say anything. It's okay. You know, you could just like go on with your life and like not stand up for yourself. And so, you know, I have a little sister who's 12 years old who is going through this stage where she is getting bullied for being Asian. And it's just like, it's infuriating in many ways that this is still happening, because you think that, you know, years after I went to school that, you know,
things would change.
Things would change. Like people would educate their kids, but the fact of the matter is like kids these days are really mean.
Oh my gosh, there's more avenues for them to be mean too.
They have like exploitation pages where they like exploit people
or like dox them and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean it's a wild west out there. Like versus like I feel like when we were like younger, like you know people would say things to my face and I wouldn't know what to do.
Well, like people would like talk behind my back, or they would say something and it wouldn't register. Like I would just be like, okay.
Yeah, you're like,
The only thing that I remember, like I definitely fell into the stereotypes. So what really, I've been doing a lot of reflecting during COVID, and a lot of my identity and discovering my identity has been through my exploration of my own Asian identity within the grander scope of everything. So for me, when I was younger, I knew I was the only Asian girl and the only Asian person in my entire school. I went to
miles.
Like literally went to a preschool. I was the only Asian girl. Kindergarten to 8th grade school, I was the only Asian girl, and it was like very frustrating. But at the same time, in a way, I look back and I'm like, I had nothing to compare it to, right?
Yeah.
So in a way, it's not that bad because I was like, if no one else looks like me, how can they relate to me, right? So it's like, okay, well then it's not that bad in the grander scope of things. I remember being very confused because the school lunches were terrible, and like I just, oh my gosh, kids these days are so lucky.
Yeah,
they get good lunches.
Right.
They're like all like little food pyramids. Like it's great.
Yeah, I think they had like chicken tenders and pizza. Like,
my mom would always make me like peanut noodles, like cold noodles, and it's like the one thing that like if she ever made it for me again, I would immediately like regress back to a child and be like, this is the best day of my life. Like it's just. There's something so comforting about it. And now that I'm older, I'm like, oh, it's very easy to make, thank God. And I used to get made fun of food-wise, which is common.
Because it looked different and it smelled different.
I was like comfortable using my chopsticks, eating my noodles, and it wasn't even like a bad thing. There was no like, your food smells weird. And I think what also was really challenging about that was at the time, since like for 7 years, so like between 5 and 12, I went to Chinese school every Friday night. It like tainted every Friday night. So like you would go to school and then you'd be like, nah, I have to go to school again.
Yeah.
And even worse, my mom was a Chinese school teacher, so I could not escape
her.
And
did she teach you Chinese?
No, she didn't. But I did, after quitting Chinese school,
okay,
I had to TA for her. She would teach like the little kids in kindergarten and whatnot. But that led to a lot of cultural identity issues that I did not discover, honestly, until COVID.
Yeah.
Because what messages I was receiving is like from my regular school, I was being painted as like the outsider, the one who is supposed to be just good at school naturally.
Right.
Also, they kept telling me that I was an ESL kid because my mom was really proud one year and wrote that my first language was Chinese.
I see.
Yeah, and they stuck me in ESL, and I blocked a lot of it out of my head, but I still remember this one thing where, like, I must have been in, like, 2nd or 3rd grade when, like, my mom was proud. Like,
right.
I was like, she tells me this now, and I'm like, of course. Like, I would be proud that my kid speaks multiple languages.
But
and
she didn't know
the repercussions.
The repercussions, yeah.
So they stuck me in ESL, like, they would take me out of class, and they would, like, ask me questions, and I just remember so clearly them being like, what shape is this? And I was like, a triangle.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, I don't understand this. Like, why am I here?
Yeah.
And so over time, it got better where, like, my mom was able to, after yelling at many people, get me and my brother both out of ESL, like, out of class. Because it just didn't make sense. I was like, my grades are fine. Like, I don't...
You're like,
I actually love school. Like, I love school. I was born here. So was my dad and my grandpa. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
But I was getting mixed messages because I would be an outsider in regular school, but feel also additionally like an outsider in Chinese school.
I could definitely see
because a lot of my classmates in Chinese school spoke Chinese at home. Like, their parents immigrated here.
Yeah.
So they would speak it all the time at home. So it felt very second nature to do the homework, to write the words, to speak back to the teacher in Chinese, whereas I, like, naturally wanted to speak English.
Yes.
So it was very, like, hard for me to be, like, to cope with that expectation to do well because my mom was already a Chinese school teacher. She's incredibly good at every language, like, knows, oh my gosh, she's so knowledgeable. And I felt that pressure and really internalized it for many years. And when I got to UCLA, I had to reckon with it again, especially in this advanced Chinese class, right? It was a very overwhelming experience for me because I felt like once again I didn't fit in.
Yeah, like you like once again there was no like I belong here. It was like actually I'm a little bit different. I'm a little bit different in here and there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember like going into that class and like the first day, and it wasn't even the first day, it was like the second class because they took me out of the regular class and put me in the advanced class because I could read what was said on the board because I'm a bad liar. And yes, literally. Oh my God, Google Translate is so helpful. It's actually done really good. And I remember getting there and realizing, oh my gosh, everybody's friends in here. They were all like, I'm from Diamond Bar, I'm from Alhambra, and I was like, I don't know where any of those places are because I'm from Northern California.
Yeah.
I also, the other test, I'm circling back to the other test that I cheated on was the geography test back in 4th grade. I have no idea where any state is, any city is. So like, that I do regret that every day because I'm like, I would really like to know where South Dakota is. Apparently it's not South.
No, it's not very South.
I have no idea. But I once again was kind of brought back to this place where I just didn't fit in again.
Yeah.
And it felt very, very isolating in a place where I thought I would feel more at home. You know, like you look around and you see people that look more like you. So you're like, oh my gosh. But then you start talking to them or they won't talk to you or treat you in the same way. And then you're like, what's happening?
Yeah, you're like, wait a minute. Like, you look like me. Like,
why couldn't we be friends?
Right.
And then kind of like what happened later on in life is I kind of feel like back in the like 90s, like the only like athletic women or like sports type people
like
was Michelle Kwan.
Yeah.
It was literally Michelle Kwan and Chrissy Yamaguchi. And there was no other Asian representation as a woman.
No. And
I will never forget this. I remember just relating so much to Min on Barney. She was the one Asian girl on Barney. And I just remember being like, oh my gosh, somebody looks like me. Because until that point, no one looked like me. No. So like I had no frame of reference of like what I should do, how I should act, how I should sound. Yeah. And that kind of turned on me later on in life because as I've started kind of exploring more my Asian identity out here in LA where there are a lot of other Asian communities, I have found that it is really easy to find the differences rather than the similarities.
Yes. And LA is such a melting pot for all different Asians also. So yes, finding the differences is way more than the similarities.
It's just way more manageable. And then on top of that, like, it's like you don't have athletic people to look up to, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's something that I have always really struggled with. And I've always felt like I went into college as like 80 pounds, like just like a tiny, like I had definitely not gone into puberty yet. Like it was just like very small human. And I really learned a lot about myself there, but I think a lot of the learning had to be unlearned. Because when you are put in a situation where you don't know your own Asian identity within an Asian group or within a larger culture, you end up kind of feeling like you have to be the token in any situation. Mm-hmm. So when it came to my friends that were white, or my friends predominantly who were white, I was always the Asian friend. I was like, and I never really thought about that until recently. Like, it just never occurred to me. And then during COVID, when everything shut down, it made me realize that, like, the fitness space and how you take care of your body with movement is not something that Asian culture promotes, talks about, but we are expected to fit a certain mold very, very quickly.
And there's a subculture of food being a love language, and basically overeating at every meal as an expression of love from our parents or from our family. So you're looking at generations of, okay, eat. Like, this is good for you. Eat.
And then if you don't eat, you're being disrespectful.
Exactly.
And then if you leave the rice in your plate, you will get one pimple for every rice grain you leave.
I definitely remember that part. These are the things that our family would threaten us with if we didn't finish just one last
because it's being wasteful.
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, I totally get it.
It's been a really interesting time in terms of, like, understanding. I've gone through a lot of therapy, thank goodness. I actually found my Chinese therapist on Instagram.
Amazing.
Somebody posted about, like, Asian American therapists, and I just, like, went through and looked for one, and it actually just, the timing was right, everything was perfect, and then she went on maternity leave. Oh. But then I got one that I like better.
Okay, great.
So it was just like, it ended up being perfect. And we've been really unpacking a lot of how I interact with other people. And how that comes from not only cultural, like, upbringing, but generational trauma.
Oh, yeah. Generational
and
trauma is a real thing.
No Asian family will talk about generational trauma because we don't want to talk about the things that have hurt us in the past.
Exactly. You don't want to go back and relive it, or you're just unconsciously unaware of how much it affects you, or how much that the past generation has passed this on to you unknowingly so.
Like preconceived notions, things like that.
Yes.
And it really changes the way you see the world. Mm-hmm. And for me, I started realizing, like, I never exercised as a kid, okay? Like, I knew I was always book smart. I was not physically smart. Like, it was not, like, when we would run a mile and pee, you know, it's like 4 laps around. Yeah. There's the bleachers on the side. I would hide under, I would run one lap and I would hide and then wait for everybody to finish. And I'd be like, this is about the right time. And then I would go out, okay?
Smart
like, it was,
kid.
See, I'm a very smart kid. Or I would, like, try to convince my teacher. I'd be like, what if I organize your bookshelf so I don't have to play dodgeball?
Yeah.
Like, I will happily alphabetically organize your bookshelf. And all of those things kind of stemmed from, not only was there no athletic representation for Asian women, but on top of that, not really having an idea of what I was capable of. Mm-hmm. So I had a lot of, like, asthma and allergy issues as a kid that I still struggle with now. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely gotten a lot better. But I definitely used it as a crutch. Yes. So I was like, this is not for me. I will excuse myself from this situation.
Yeah, you will do anything. Except for exercise.
Color coordinate and alphabetize all the books we have in the room.
And the teacher said yes.
I think so. I don't know. I'll ask him. My parents are still friends with him. And so during this time, I've kind of been thinking about, like, what has gotten me into fitness. Yes. I've been teaching group fitness for over 7 years. And I kind of fell into it because I had a friend bring me to, like, a Megaformer class and introduce me to the Lou Gray method. So it's basically like Pilates, but, like, more of an athletic approach. Like people with classical Pilates backgrounds like are always just like shook because it just moves very quickly, but it really taps into my need for Asian efficiency. So I love just making it happen. Like you spend 50 minutes like 2-3 times a week and you're good.
Yes.
So I love that. But I noticed that when I was younger, because there was no athletic Asian representation, and I felt like there was no place for me because I had asthma and allergies, and that was my way of getting out of the situation, I would never be athletic in my entire life. I did not see myself being a tennis star. I did play tennis because the skirts were cute, but I was not good. Like there was nothing, like I'm not a team sport. I was never going to play soccer or softball. It just like wasn't, none of those called to me.
Yeah, and did your parents like encourage you?
No, so I got really lucky with my parents that they were very encouraging, but they would never force anything on me unless it was Chinese school.
Unless it was Chinese school.
And my brother only had to go 2 years, and I had to go 7.
Well, I mean, I think that Asian parents definitely see
a
big value in like keeping the language alive. Like that was like that was my grandpa's dying wish, and that's why I have a TikTok teaching people how to speak Chichao.
Oh my god, I love that.
But like, see how important it is in every family. Like you still need to learn the language. Like, and there's also expectations of the average Asian American kid, right? Like they don't want you to go and like play soccer and like go and like do like things that will harm your face or body.
I literally played the cello. Yeah. I'm 5'1". Why did I pick the largest string instrument? It's so, like, I was not good at it either.
And like it's so interesting because you know I grew up here too as well, and like I can like while you're sharing your stories, I'm like, yes, I've like been in a similar situation like that, and like I can only imagine how many other Asian girls have been going through that too, with like even different like first generation or second generation.
Like, there just needs to be more representation of Asian women everywhere.
Yes.
And what's really, really challenging is when you don't see it, you don't know that's possible for you.
Yes.
So I feel like what had to happen for me was for my white friend to bring me to this class where honestly I would have never gone on my own volition. And I actually fell in love with the method because it was efficient.
Yes.
That's the part that like really taps into me.
The Asian efficiency.
The Asian efficiency. And then like I got certified and started teaching in addition to my full-time job.
Okay.
So for a long time, many years, I was teaching like 5 and 6 a.m. classes as well as 6 and 7 p.m. classes and going to a 9 to 5 in between.
Wow.
I did it, but like my mental health was definitely not great. Like it was fine.
It's exhausting.
It was really exhausting, and teaching is a different type of energy. So I am lucky that in the method that I teach, unlike spin, I don't have to be on a bike riding. I get to talk to people, I get to adjust them into the right positions, and get to really connect with people at a different level. Yeah. But then I realized they're not talking back, so like all of you guys know so much about me, and like I know nothing about the people in class. But I started realizing, especially during COVID, that there's just the Pilates, the boutique fitness space is remarkably white. And it's something that I truly never noticed. You know, I knew it wasn't my space, but I was taking up the space that I felt like I have tried to create for other people as much as I try to create for myself.
Yes. I mean, honestly, I was surprised to see an Asian Pilates instructor. I've never seen an Asian Pilates instructor. And just the fact that you are taking up space in that space, it just like, it's like, oh wow, like if she can do it, then maybe I can do it. Or maybe like somebody else is in there and it's like, oh, like maybe they'll have the same thought. Like just exactly what you said, like you don't know it's possible unless you see it.
Until you see it. So, you know, when I actually met Michelle Kwan,
oh my god, did you die?
Oh my gosh, because she was everything. Like I literally went up to her and was like, hi Michelle. Like I wrote 5 book reports on you. You're a goddess. And she was like, thank you so much. And I was like, God, I'm so creepy. But like
I'm sure
she's the sweetest person, superbly strong, wonderful human being. But it's just something that like I needed more than that. Like I needed to know that athleticism wasn't tied to a sport. Because you can move your body for your health.
Yes.
Just because it makes you feel good. And that's something that I never really connected with because I never knew it could have that power outside of sport. And that definitely comes from, you know, traditional, like, cultural beliefs in terms of, like, we are supposed to be small Asian women if we don't fit in this bubble, but we also are supposed to eat everything that's in front of us. Like, it's just a lot of conflicting messages.
Yes.
And so my mom was never an athletic person either. She personally felt like she was, like, the chubby sister. And I just, like, and it kills me because my mom's, like, 4'10", and she's just the most gorgeous human being ever and the kindest human being ever.
Yeah.
And for her to have that as an underlying current in her life, that makes me so sad.
Yeah.
Because it really, that kind of, like, negativity on your own self makes you box yourself in, like, pigeonhole yourself in to a space where you don't think that it's possible to get out.
Right.
So she never thought that she could be a sporty person because she doesn't want to play sports. And I was like, same.
Yeah.
And so what's really inspired me, especially during COVID, has been my parents. Oh my gosh. So we were doing online classes and they were taking my online classes twice a week, okay? They would leave their cameras on and they would wear their little, like, knee braces and they would, like, stretch. And, like, it got to the point where, like, my clients just got to know me so much better and realized that they were like, oh my God, this is why you are the way you are.
Yeah.
Because they would see my parents scream, like they'd be stretching in the living room and like, and it's just like the cutest thing ever. And that support has meant so much to me at this time that they don't even really know. Because I have always felt like I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an engineer, I'm not an accountant. Like, those ones are ideal situations. And
It's
I've always...
every Asian parent.
And honestly, like, I internalized that. And I have for many years felt like I have failed my parents because I have not given them that. Like, how am I going to take care of them as they get old, you know? And something that I had to really learn is when you find something that, like, lights you up, the money will come.
Yeah.
And I have firm belief in that, you know? And when I started teaching, I did it because I was like, I could probably do this. And then I did. It wasn't easy, but it was definitely has shaped me as, like, a human being and what I want to provide people in class. In the past, it's always been, you know, just me telling stories and people working out. But I think I have a bigger purpose right now. And it's to create a safe space. That's really it. I am tremendously honored to have other Asian women in my classes and for them to say that they wouldn't normally take a class like this and they're really excited to take a class that makes them feel safe to move their bodies. Like, that means so much to me. And that's what I want to give. That's the legacy I want to leave.
And that lights you up.
It's like, it's my passion. Like, I care so much about people who want to move their bodies.
Yeah.
All you've got to do is move your body and you're an athlete.
Yeah.
You don't have to play a freaking sport, you know?
Yeah. And you're breaking that exact stereotype. You don't have to play a sport to be an athlete.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like Pilates is, I'm very ungraceful when I'm doing Pilates.
It's okay, don't worry, I am too. I've been doing it for
shaking.
like 10 years and it's still terrible.
It's a lot of shaking and it's very challenging, but it also, you know, has a profound effect on your own mental health as well. Moving your body in general has a very great effect on the endorphins that you produce, and the fact that your parents tuned in, I mean, that was like kind of like them showing up for your big game, right?
It was like, I mean, when they were like, you know, we want to take your classes, like, send us the Zoom link, we'll pay. And I was like, you'll pay?
Yeah.
And they were like, we will. And I'm like, you birthed me. No. You fed me. No.
Right.
But in that really, in a strange way that I never expected, it built a really beautiful relationship that got deeper with my parents during COVID. Because they have never really seen me teach. They don't really have that, like, they also don't love LA. They're not city people.
Yeah.
We're definitely, like, a family that loves to, like, garden and farm and, like, go on walks. And so, like, there has always been a challenging piece of my life that has not been as outdoorsy as them because I'm allergic to nature.
Of course, you're out there.
And I'm stuck inside the house with like the air conditioning because I literally cannot leave the house. So like my entire family, like my mom, my dad, my brother, my grandma at the time, my grandpa, we all lived together. They were all very tan. And I was very pale my entire life. And so in a way, traditional Asian culture, I am the prized grandchild.
Yes.
But it just was like it was very frustrating because I felt like I didn't have any common ground with my parents. I already knew I felt like a big fish in a small pond because I knew I was meant for a city and not meant for farmland. Like it was literally my allergies telling me, please leave.
Yeah.
And so when I went to UCLA, it was just like a big awakening that like, okay, I am where I'm supposed to be, but I didn't anticipate the challenges with my cultural identity as I did.
Yeah. I mean, I think cultural identity for any Asian American here can be extremely confusing. You're faced with what your parents taught you, and then you kind of like go and explore, and you're like, you have to unlearn a lot of things because it just doesn't line up with
the current climate.
And you kind of have to make these adjustments. And I'm so proud of you for reflecting during COVID.
Lots of therapy.
Yeah, I mean, but just the fact that you took a step for your own self.
And it was actually forced.
Really?
It was actually forced.
Okay.
So
you didn't want to.
I did not want to.
I don't want to do this.
Before COVID, I actually got laid off from my 9-to-5 job because they got acquired, and so luckily I had teaching as a backup, so I just took on more classes and taught full time. And it was kind of a force to like put me in this situation. So I was like, okay, this is it. Like I didn't choose to leave my other job. I was laid off. This is the situation. So of course in my head, I was thinking, well, maybe I'll go back. Maybe I'll go back to a desk job because that's what I need in order to be financially stable, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the goal. But it wasn't until COVID where I realized that was not for me.
No.
It was not for me. Like COVID forced me to face all the things that I did not want to face because I was moving and I was going from class to class teaching 25 classes a week and being like burnt out at both ends and not really knowing who I was. Yeah. So it really forced me to sit down and really discover like what it is to be me. What life do I want to live right now?
Who are you?
Who am I?
Yeah.
Like I have terrible memory. Like I don't remember, it's something that I learned recently. I don't remember details, like detailed facts, as much as I remember the feeling of it. Mm. So when I listen to other people telling their stories or when I talk to somebody, I am looking for what are they feeling and how can I empathize? Mm-hmm. And so when it comes to connecting with other people, when it comes to the information, the nitty gritty, I really struggle with that. It's like all about juju. So it's like, it's just a little off.
I think you're just an empath.
Yeah.
And I am too. Like, I feel what other people are feeling.
But do you feel like that's ever appreciated in any Asian culture? Like, there's a respect level.
Yeah. In Asian culture, it's all about respect and honor. Feelings are not really taken into account. Like, I remember, like, crying or, like, expressing emotion, and there's no space for that. There's no safe space for that within my family. So,
I absolutely would cry in the bathroom, and I would be like, there's no other place for me to cry.
Yeah, and there's no way you could have, like, a conversation with your family and they'll console you. They'll just be like, stop crying, like, it's a
because it's problem solving. Like, I understand that now. It's literally like, don't waste your time on something that doesn't have an end goal.
Yes.
And it's them looking out for us. And I fully understand that now. And it's also how they were raised, and et cetera, and et cetera. But, in that process of, like, COVID and, like, this reckoning, it was also a reckoning to realize that I was gay. Mm-hmm. It was, like, such a and that is something that additionally I'm dealing with because I felt like I had a lot of shame of who I was as a person, even though I covered it with this guise of confidence. Mm-hmm. It's been a lot of learning about myself in a way that has me stepping out of myself and reflecting. And that's never time I used to take before COVID. I was always like, when's the next paycheck gonna hit?
Yeah.
Like, can I save at all this year?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I think adding on to that, COVID basically forced you to stop being so busy, and we use this being busy and productive thing to mask a lot of the things that we're actually going through. And it was only until COVID where you're like, all right, let's unpack everything. And a lot of people don't want to do that because it's uncomfortable, it's painful, you're going to go through some crazy roller coaster emotions, but I promise at the end of it, you will discover the treasure.
Yeah. It just takes, like, you don't know where you are on your journey. Mm-hmm. Like, I am a person that loves to know where I am. I hate feeling lost, right? So that feeling of being lost sends me into this kind of hopelessness because I have no gauge of where I am or where the end is. So if you think about, like, you see that you've come really far, but you have no idea what the future holds for you. Mm-hmm. And that in itself is scary.
Of course.
And then you, like, start to unpack, like, all the elements that you have not faced for, the last 30 years for me. And all of these pieces have forced me to slow down and realize, okay, what do I want to do in this life?
Yeah.
Because as much as I love my parents, honor my parents, everything like that, and they know this, I need to do what's right for me.
Yes.
Because I cannot envision living a life that isn't fulfilling. And now that I feel like I've found my kind of calling, which is honestly teaching, I just love the idea of connecting with people and providing them with a safe space. It's kind of like, what's next? What's going on? But that is my, like, internal brain that's always going, what's next? And not celebrating those actual little wins, because we're not taught to, as kids, celebrate those things that are just so small, but they're big stepping stones.
Yeah, I definitely can agree with you where it's like, once you've achieved this one, you're like, okay, we gotta get the next one. We gotta get the next one. We gotta get the next one. And you're missing out on, like you said, the celebration of the present moment and the present achievements. I think I'm going through kind of a similar thing where it's like, we recently sold our donut shop. Yeah. And so that was my entire life, like literally from morning to night till the middle of the night was dedicated to this thing. And like, when I tell people, they're like, congratulations. But here I am going, wait, but like, what's next? Like, and I'm like, I have things in the pipeline and things are great, but it's, again, I think it's that Asian, like, work ethic that, like, is instilled in you to just, like, keep achieving and keep going. But in terms of, like, really, like, slowing it down and, like, celebrating your wins, like, you realize that you have to create the space for that. Like, your parents are not going to do that for you.
No, it's like you have to do the work. Like, because there's no change unless you do something different, right? Exactly. Something in my classes that I've been really thinking about, I, like, occasionally get a little woo-woo in between, like, stories of, like, weird things that happen in my life. I've been really realizing what it means to take out the distractions, okay? Mm-hmm. So COVID took out all the busyness as a distraction, right? And we were just, like, on our phones and wearing our earphones and going on walks and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But we weren't kind of confronting the things that we've been running from. Because you don't know what those things are. You just think that this is the status quo. This is the normal. Yeah.
And everybody's running, right? Yeah. You just keep
going.
You're on fast forward.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like I was in fast forward up until COVID.
And then also, the busyness provides your parents and your family with, like, a level of comfort that you're doing things so that you can better your life and their life and, like, the family legacy. Mm-hmm. So that busyness has a lot of layers to it.
Yes.
You take that out and you're kind of left with, like, your thoughts and whatnot. And it's really hard to tune into that voice. Because you hear your mother, you hear your father, you hear your grandparents, but do you really listen to yourself? Like, do you ever sit down and be like, let's take all the, like, respect, honor, like, I know I have to be houseman for my family, but, like, what do I want? Yeah. And that's not selfish. Mm-hmm. And that's what's so shocking to me that I didn't learn about the process of things. Find your happiness and things will fall into place.
That is such great advice because I feel like I go through all that all the time, like literally crying breakdowns.
Oh my God, story of my life.
Like just like so many thoughts in your head and so many expectations, and you're completely right. Like, at the end of the day, you have to learn how to control and, like, be aware that those voices will always be there.
Which is good. I love that my parents are my moral compass. Like, they have great moral compasses. They're such wholesome people.
Right. But these voices will always be around. Yeah. And, you know, it's really finding an outlet for you to understand your own voice. Like, where is it? Like, it's basically buried under, you know, your childhood.
Layers of protection.
Yeah, like, literally. Like, I feel like within Asian culture, it's all about protection, but sometimes the protection ends up backfiring because there's no space for you to speak or no space for you to have this voice.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm so glad that, you know, you've dropped so many gems during this podcast where, like, I want, you know, my little sister to hear this.
That makes me so happy.
I want, like, people who are going through what we went through.
I mean, I'm still going through it.
Right,
I'll be fully
same.
honest.
I'm still going through it
I
too.
literally start my classes with, like, I'm a little unhinged. My mental health's not great right now, but, like, we'll just see where it goes from here.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know. I feel like for me, what like my outlet is exercise and my projects, but it's also like my legacy is like continuing these stories.
Absolutely.
Like making an impact however I can. And for some people, it could look a lot different. If you were to have, you know, like, how do you think that messages like yours will be solidified and, like, carried on to the next generation?
I used to think that part of honoring and respecting my parents was children, providing another generation, right?
And for many Asian families, it is, because you're literally asked to have babies at, like, 18 years old.
And it's something that I've been, again, thinking about during COVID and, like, realizing that, like, I don't think I want children. So it's something that I've been kind of reckoning with, because I don't know what kind of legacy I want to leave if it's not the one that's expected of me.
I think that during this podcast, I've learned so much about your specific journey, and I am interested in everybody's journey of just, like, their upbringing and their unpacking of what they're going through. And I feel like a lot of Asian women go through this, but it's never really talked about. With the pandemic happening, though, like, there's definitely been this, you know, or, like, this whole new craze of, like, exploring what mental health is like. And in the Asian community, it's so hard to talk about it because there's no space for it. But I feel like it's our responsibility to really, like, move forward and really take it into account of, like, how important it is for all of us and our past generation as well.
Absolutely.
I would love for you to share, you know, 5 golden nuggets on not only how you are so capable of being, like, self-expressive, but, like, your vision of, like, being an idol for, like, being an athletic idol for Asian Americans.
An athletic idol?
Yes.
Are you okay?
Yes, I'm okay. Like, that's what you are.
Idol? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna cry.
You're an inspiration for other Asian women if they want to be a Pilates teacher or if they want to go and do something that's not a lawyer or a doctor. Like, you're literally paving the way for other people. So I would love for you to just share a little bit about, like, your self-expression and of, like, not being afraid to express, you know, being in the athletic category for your career.
I think the first golden nugget would be to trust yourself. And that may look different for everyone. And it is one of the guiding principles that I live my life by. Because things can change, but when you trust that you are looking back in your brain and, like, making decisions that make sense for you, and you trust that process even though you don't know the end result, you'll get there. Because you're not forcing yourself to figure out what's going to be in the future, but you're taking it one step at a time and trusting yourself every single step of the way.
I love it.
And part of that, so that goes into golden nugget number 2, part of that is sit by yourself. Okay, I swear to you, I am not a calm person in the slightest. At the start of COVID, I did a meditation challenge that I only completed because I was unemployed. So like that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Find what allows you to weed through the voices in your head. Find out how you get to that place. So it doesn't have to be sitting on a meditation pillow or doing yoga.
Yeah.
For me, it's movement, okay? It doesn't have to be in the form of like aggressive exercise. It could be a walk down the street, a FaceTime with my mom. But that movement allows me to move like stagnant, this makes me sound like, ooh, but like move stagnant energy in my body and like get me to think. You know how like when people go take a shower and they suddenly have the best ideas?
Yes.
It's that kind of thing. So like when I'm moving my body in any form whatsoever during the day, I take a moment, literally just like 5 minutes, just kind of peel back, like, how am I feeling?
Yeah.
What are the goals for today? You know? And realize that if I don't have enough in the tank, I will not be able to give to others.
Yes.
So that leads into my third nugget. See, it's a whole thing.
I love it.
If you do not pour enough joy and love into yourself, you will never be able to give it to others.
It's very true.
You can tell yourself you are, because I've spent many years telling myself that I am the most authentic version of myself, and I've always been quirky and like a chatty Cathy, obviously. But if you don't love yourself, all facets of yourself, you'll never be able to spread that joy around. And I will tell you that joy is infectious. I don't know if that you can say that anymore because of COVID, but like, but that joy is infectious. People can feel it, and I can feel it.
Yeah.
And the more I have become in tune with myself, the more I can give to my classes, to my friends, to my family, and it just has this wonderful ripple effect. I have just more capacity to give.
Yes.
And that's what I want to do in the first place. I love giving. Like I thought about bringing you a lemon today, but then I was like, what if she has a lemon tree, you know? Because a lot of Asian people have lemon trees. So that's why like
we have a lime tree.
That's why so like that would be my third one. And then the fourth one is don't wait for inspiration to strike. A lot of times we wait for a sign to tell us that we're in the right place, okay? But sometimes we have to realize that that moment could be right now and we're missing it. So if you're looking for a sign that like you're doing the right thing, if it is filling your cup, if it is making you happy, if it is bringing you joy, just do it. Because other things will fall into place. And it might not be perfect. It might not be the dream, like the classic Asian American dream, but like if you're happy, that's also what your parents want. So that leads me into number 5. Honor and respect and all the tenets that make Asian culture so important, and love in a different way that maybe like you don't hug your parents, but like you feel that love.
Yeah.
It can be shown in so many different ways. So
Definitely.
For my parents, it's definitely food. My parents love to eat. They were very, very averse to me being vegetarian when I was like 14 or so. But they are okay now. It took a little bit of time, but they're okay now. Because food is a love language.
Yes.
And so I have felt love from their end, and I felt like because I could not, I'm not a great cook, but because I could not cook and give back to them at that level, that I was not respecting them or honoring them in the way that I should. I want people to remember in the same way like I tell myself every single day that honor and respect can be shown in different ways on both ends.
Very true.
And never assume that your parents are disappointed in you. They could honestly say that they're disappointed in me, but it could be a joke. You know, they'll laugh it off. It's that type of thing.
Yeah.
But we're all going through things on our own journeys, and we make our own choices. And ultimately, like our parents, they are protective over us, and they have this specific dream because they want us to succeed.
Always.
However, they don't realize that there are a lot of different avenues for success and a lot of different metrics for success. And one of the biggest things that has like led my life is happiness and joy. If I'm not happy and I'm not joyful, I cannot give to anyone else.
That is a great one to end on, and it's true. If you don't have happiness and joy, how do you give it to others?
Yeah.
And that theme runs true in every part of your life. It's not just one part. And I'm just so excited and happy that you got to share your story with us, and you have so many. You were so vulnerable with us on what you've unpacked, and my hope is that this inspires, whoever's listening out there to unpack a little bit of what's going on in their life, because ultimately it will lead to your happiness. And I just wanted to thank you so much for being on my podcast. Minus the technical difficulties, I'll figure it all out. And for those of you who are listening, thank you so much for listening to Short and Sweet Donut Princess Podcast. Until next time, holla at your girl.